Hi, today we're doing training for 4th grade Set C Plaster Masks Art Vista project. For this project, there's a couple of things that you need to do to prepare even before the time that you have scheduled to do the project with the class. One thing is that you need to go into the front office and reserve the picnic tables for when you're going to have this project, and you talk to the secretary of the school and reserve about an hour and a half starting from when you'll be doing this lesson. So it's done at the picnic tables, not in the classroom. You can describe to the kids how to do it in the classroom, and then they all go out at the same time to the picnic tables. It's good to have all your supplies and everything brought out there, and there's rolling bins that you can put this all on. Some of the supplies that you're going to need are the plaster, and I'm going to tell you about that. That's the other thing you need to prepare before the lesson. Also, there's this bin full of petroleum jelly, Vaseline, and the kids have to put that on their face before they put the mask, the plaster on their face. You'll need these wooden skewers that go through the mask to make holes so that they can be hung up later after they dry. It's good to have some kind of baby wipes or some kind of towels, because it is quite a messy project. There's also a bin that has nothing but hair clips, bobby pins, and even shower caps. And these are important because the child has to have the hair away from their face. If the plaster gets in their hair, it will pull their hair out, so it's uncomfortable. So we really stress for them before the kids start doing the project. You need to get clips and put the hair away from your face, or put on one of these shower caps. And they look kind of silly, but they have fun with it, and they don't mind it. You'll also need some plastic bins to put water in. So on every table you'll have water bins, and also a bin full of the strips of plaster. And I'll explain to you how you're going to prepare these strips. So before the lesson begins, you need to take the rolls of plaster, and I believe it's 7 or 8 rolls of this plaster, just like this, for each class. So you make sure you have 8 rolls, and then it comes in a big long strip that's about 4 inches wide. So you need to cut it into small strips, and just using regular scissors, most of the strips should be 1 inch long, like this. It's also good to have some that are a 1/2 inch long or so, like this.
Wide.
Smaller ones, wide. Thank you. So most of them 1 inch wide, a few that are a 1/2 inch wide, and then we put these in these lunch bins or some container on the middle of the picnic tables, along with the bins of water. So the kids will just grab the strips and start developing the plaster mask right on to the face of their partner. So that's another thing. Before you go out to the picnic tables, you should announce that each child has to have a partner, and they will work with that partner to put the mask material onto the other person's face. They don't put it on their own face, they put it on their partner's face and create the mask on their face. And then when it pops off, the person whose face it's on, that's their mask, even though their partner has built the mask. So I'm going to give a little bit of a demonstration here that you can do in the classroom before you go out to the picnic tables with the kids. So we usually recommend they start with
And there are some of these plastic masks for kids that are very averse to having it on their face.
Yeah, some kids may have an allergy to plaster, or they don't want to have that on their face, so we do have these plastic molds in the Art Vista closet with all the supplies. So you explain to the kids, you dip each strip into the water and take your 2 fingers like this and get the excess water off of the strip, and then it can be placed on the face. And I usually have them do an outline around the entire face to start with, so that they have a good base.
And make sure you put Vaseline on these as well, because they will stick to the plastic mold.
Right. Before any plaster goes on the child's face or these plastic molds, you have to cover their face in Vaseline. Lightly cover it in Vaseline, and put a good amount of Vaseline in the area of the eyebrows or where there's hair, because again, the plaster will stick to hair. Once their face is covered in Vaseline, usually the child puts on the Vaseline on their own face, and then they start having the person who's building the mask go around and do the border. So I tell the kids it's good to start by doing the border, and then you can fill in the other areas. When they put these plaster strips on, if you rub it with your finger, it gets the bumpiness out and it kind of activates the plaster. And if they keep smoothing it like this as they go along, it creates a better, nice smooth mask instead of one that's bumpy like this. So the person that's building it needs to be diligent and do a good job on their partner, because they want their partner to do a good job on their mask. So it's important to stress that. These smaller strips are good for the area between the eyes, on the bridge of the nose. If it was too thick, you know, it would go into their eyes. So these smaller strips are good for those areas. And then they just keep applying. And it's very important that they do more than one layer. Usually 3 layers of plaster is sufficient. And they just keep building it. And if it's too thin in any area, it'll be wobbly and it won't be a good quality mask. So it's really important that they do multiple layers. So stress tap to the children in your demonstration. So they have done the border, they can do this bridge of the nose, and then they continue to fill in. Now, some kids cover their mouth as long as the nose holes are available and open. You can go right over the mouth. And here's an example of one that they covered the mouth, but you can see their nose was open and they were able to breathe well. Here's one where they did not cover the mouth, and so they just went right around the mouth. And it's up to the child who's having the mask built on their face whether they want their mouth covered or not. So again, the 2 partners should agree what they're going to do. Here's another example. This mask is really good and strong. It was built well. It has, you know, 3, 4, even 5 layers of plaster, so it's very, very stable. You can see in this one, maybe it was a little bit thinner in this area, or the nose bridge. Some of the areas where they have fewer layers, it's just not as strong of a mask. So you really want to stress that with the kids. You need to do, here's an example of an area that didn't have enough layers, and so it's kind of floppy, and this mask probably wouldn't last as long as some of the stronger ones. So many layers. Once the mask is completely done and it has dried for usually about 15 minutes. It depends if it's warm outside or if it's cold and wet outside. It takes a little bit longer for the masks to dry, but it just dries right on their face. They just need to sit patiently for usually 10-15 minutes after it's completed. And then the helpers can help to take the mask off of the child's face. Usually if you get your fingers underneath the mask and kind of do that all around the edges, it'll just pop off. If there wasn't enough Vaseline on the eyebrows, it can be very uncomfortable for the kids, so make sure their eyebrows have a good amount of Vaseline before you pull that mask off, otherwise it can pull the hair out. After the mask comes off the child's face, it's up to the helpers to take the wooden dowels and stick it through, usually around the temples area, so that there's 2 holes, because for the art show, you're going to need to string up some kind of wire, or even a pipe cleaner works well for this, or some docents like to use ribbon and make it fancier. So it's important to make sure these holes are there. Also, the stick is important because you'll take some masking tape, or in this case blue painter's tape, and a Sharpie, and write the child's name on there. So here you can see the child's name is written in Sharpie. That's the only way that we have to track whose mask it is, so it's really important to put the stick through, put a piece of tape on, and in Sharpie write the child's name. And then they can just be placed in box lids that are available in the Art Vista closet to dry. Usually if they are put into the classroom and sit on the counter overnight, that's enough for them to dry fully, and at that point you can stack them and kind of condense them down into the boxes. So just 2 box lids should hold all the masks for your class.
When does the partner do their mask? Do they do it while the person's is drying, or do you start all over?
Yeah, so when they don't do it at the same time. One person first does the mask onto their partner, and then at that point, when it's done and you've checked that it has enough layers in all areas and it's strong enough, that can start drying, and they can start putting the mask on their partner as that mask is on their face. So there's no reason to sit for 15 minutes and then start doing it. It's kind of funny because they can't speak and they kind of do some hand signals and things, but this is all part of the fun of the project, and the kids really have a great time with it. So the next lesson after set C is set D, is decorating the masks, and there's a whole nother video that we've created to train you on how to do that. So that's plaster mask making assignments. Enjoy it.